suspension overhaul we did on the Civic build. The suspension next to turbo in cars is probably my favorite part of a build because you can really dial it in how you want it with today's aftermarket. There's plenty of options to choose from to cover, coilovers, the springs, spring rate, struts, everything, control arms. You can get it all for a Civic pretty much by picking up the phone, calling, and ordering what you want. What I did is I went with Skunk2. It's a company I've used plenty of times through the years. I've been doing suspension on Civics probably since 1999, so over 20 years, and I've used their products I don't know how many times. I just never really had a real issue with it. Sometimes you get a bushing and go out over time, but that's going to happen with anybody. So what I did on this car is front to back we went with Skunk2, and I'll go ahead and show you what we did and why I got what I got. Before I even get into what we put on the car, I'm going to show you what we took off, which is the absolute wrong way to lower a car. This is one of the old front, not coilovers, springs. You see this? This is called heating a spring. Really old school. And on a Honda, it's really unnecessary because there's so many different ways to lower it. Even if you're trying to be super cheap, you can, bounce around on a cheap set of springs. But what they did with this, you take a torch and you heat the coils to try to make them sag to a height that you want. But you see over time what it does to a spring. You can even see when they were heating it, it burnt up the collar right there. But this, don't do this. This is terrible. Now go ahead and start top to bottom on the front. We went with the Skunk2 adjustable upper control arms, which these allow us to dial in the camber. The upper ball joint slides back and forth with adjustment of these Allen bolts to let you move the camber back to 0 or -1, whichever you want to do. Then to the ST coilovers, which are both height and rebound dampening controllable. And at the bottom we did the Skunk2 steel replacement lower control arms, which on this car we ended up needing because for whatever reason, you don't see it a lot down south where you get a car to rust and a lot of bad bolts, but most of the bolts on the suspension either broke or were seized up in the bushing to where we had to torch them and cut them out. So fortunately we got these that bolted right back in and allowed us to bolt in this traction bar. The customer supplied this bar. This is the first time I installed a traction bar on this chassis that wasn't a full race brand bar, which overall fit pretty well, other than the fact that I had to cut these radius rods down. I cut off 3/4 of an inch off each end because the bar was too long to physically bolt back in between the bar and the rod with the brackets in place. So once I got those cut down, I was able to fit it back together, and you get some adjustment in the bar because you can actually, when doing the alignment, use this bar to slightly pull or push the lower control arm. And just for an example, here's the stock upper control arm. You can see the bushings are just worn out. So a plus to getting the Skunk2 one is to get these new bushings, and it allows for adjustability in this upper ball joint to slide back and forth. Back in the day, back when I worked in the wheel and tire business, we used to use a company called SPC, Specialty Products Company. They used to make an adjustable ball joint that we put on all the Hondas once we lowered them, because from the factory there is no adjustment at all. I believe the spec on these cars was to be out 1/2 degree and it still be within spec. So whenever you lower it, you're going to push it out further than 1/2 degree. So using the new Skunk2 control arm allows you to get the camber back to 0 or -1 or whatever you want to put it at, even with the car lowered, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, whatever it is, you can still slide the camber back to whatever it is you want. Because without putting a camber kit on the car, all you can do in a Civic is dial in the toe and back it back off the rack. So to do a proper alignment, you want to have some sort of adjustable camber kit in the front. And like I said, from what I've been using, Skunk2 has been the best option for me. Now to the rear, you can see it's also the same ST coilover, which we also added an camber kit for adjustment in the rear, and the Skunk2 billet lower control arms that are anodized and came with the new bushings, which were much needed because this car, again, had a serious bolt issue and bushings tearing up as they were coming out. So it's all new now and ready for alignment. So what I do is I get the wheels back on and I'll show you I've also modified the exhaust to fit and bolt back up as well. Now, as I showed you in the last video when I did the unboxing of this exhaust, I went ahead and cut it down and modified it to fit with the downpipe. I added the flex to the exhaust and V-banded the downpipe and the exhaust so they'll bolt up together. Make an easy connection, and this is ready to go back on as well. I just went and grabbed the rear just to express again, do not do this. Don't heat your coilovers. Suspension is very important. It's important for handling, it's important for your safety. This is a terrible idea. This is the back spring. You know, a back spring should not look like this, especially the bottom where they're overlapping. You can see, as I was saying, the bushings before, that bolt and that bushing are one permanently. It had to be cut off the car. Same for that bolt, it won't come out. But again, do a good suspension setup. You know, just like doing a good turbo setup, it's only as good as the parts that you put on it. You know, don't do it just for cosmetics. Do it because you want it to handle well. Turbos, do it because you want your car to perform well with longevity. You know, I'm obviously the anti-auction site turbo kit guy, because the cheap parts don't do well, and a lot of times you don't know that if you're new to it until you hold a cheap part in your hand and a good part in your hand side by side. When you're looking at pictures, you really can't tell if you don't know what you're looking at. But again, good suspension, good turbo parts will make for a good build that will last and not be troublesome and have you wanting to part the car out, you know, in 90 days because it didn't turn out the way you want it because you cheaped out on the parts. So invest in your car, invest in good parts, and keep it going. I appreciate y'all checking out the video. I'll get something up again next time. I'm gonna go ahead and get the wheels put back on this car. As you can see, we just put new headlights in it too. We've got new headlights, new fenders, waiting for a new hood. And this car is almost ready to go. All the fab work is done. I'm gonna go ahead and put the charge pipe kit back on it next time. I'll put the catch can setup back on it, and it'll be ready to roll off the rack here in a few days. We'll get the other Civic, the SI, on the rack to finish it up, and I'll show you some more on that car as well. But again, I appreciate you checking out the video. If you like it, like, subscribe, share the video, and I appreciate it. Thank you.